Hello, my name is Albert or Avraham, and I just want to tell you a little bit about myself and about my life and what brought me to Israel, and I guess my message really for my friends who I know who are in a similar situation that I was, and maybe it will inspire them a little. So I got married about less than a year ago, and my wife and I had a baby boy. We had a Brit Milah and a Pidyon Haben. And it's a place in my life that I really didn't ever see myself getting to when I was living in New York City, living in America. I grew up in Los Angeles. I had a wonderful life there, thank God. I worked in the movie industry for a while, worked at a production company, worked at one of the big agencies. I moved to New York. I lived in Manhattan for a long time. I was making, Baruch Hashem, thank God, very good money. Had a beautiful car, had a nice apartment, had a lot of really nice things. And really felt that I was living an amazing life in a lot of ways. And then I decided to move to Brooklyn. You know, after living in Manhattan for a long time, people told me I was committing social suicide by moving from Manhattan to Brooklyn. But I did, and I got into a very nice community, and I met some unbelievable rabbis, and my life really took a change for the better. And at some point, I started asking myself, like, is my life living me or am I living my life? You know, I was getting up every morning, going to work, sitting in an office, me, a telephone and a computer, I don't know, 8 hours a day, making really good money, but I didn't have a life. I didn't have a life, and I said to myself, am I living my life or is my life living me? And where is my life going if I continue on this track? And at some point, I started asking myself deeper questions and asking myself, what's going to be if I stay like this? I'm dating, it's not really working for me, and so I have this great job, but I don't have a real life. And I started thinking to myself, like, where is this eventually leading? And I think a lot of the problem with today's generation, I'm speaking really to a lot of my friends who are still, single and older, and you have to ask yourself if you can find the time in your day. You know, today's days are so full of distractions. I mean, from the minute you get up, you pick up your smartphone, you've got emails, you've got texts, you've got WhatsApps, you want to check the news, you want to check the stock market. There's so many things, and every time you have a free second, you're looking at your phone. You don't have time to stop and think. I remember even getting on the subways in New York. It's like you get on the subway and there's ads everywhere and there's posters and banners and things, and they're giving out free newspapers in the station. So you never have a chance to just stop and think and ask yourself, where is my life going? Not today, not tomorrow, not next month, but where's my life going? Where am I going to be in a year, in 5 years? And what do I want out of life? You know, I have so many friends who are older and single, and they're working in these amazing careers, but where is your life going? What do you want out of life? How do you want to be remembered? You're the greatest doctor, you're the biggest designer, you're the smartest lawyer, but if you're living alone and you don't have a family, and you don't have children, and you don't have a husband or a wife to share your life with and to build, then there's nothing there. There's nothing there. You know, there's nothing there. And I'm speaking to my friends because you know what? You only live once. Life is short. It goes by quickly. And you should just stop if you can and ask yourself, where is my life going really in the long term? And if I'm not happy with the direction, and if I don't see a change, if I don't see something new happening, then I need to make a change in my life and not be afraid to make a change, especially if it's a change for the spiritual, for God. You know, I have a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, who 4 years ago, he came here to Israel and he saw me living here and he saw that I was progressing with my life in a certain way. And then I spoke to him a year ago before my wedding, and he said to me, he goes, you know what? He goes, I see that your life has progressed. He goes, if nothing happens in my life within the next 6 months, I'm moving to Israel. I'm coming. I want to, I see that for you, you got married, you have a child. I'm going to move to Israel. And the guy's still stuck in America. And every time I speak to him, there's always an excuse and a reason and a why and a this. There's always going to be an excuse. There's always going to be a reason why not. But ask yourself, like I said, just where is my life going? Am I in charge or is my life in charge of me? And what do I really want? And if you're not happy with the direction, if you don't see any real change for the better, for the long term, then you need to make a change and not be afraid to make that change. You can be the greatest lawyer or the greatest doctor or the greatest designer or the greatest whatever it is, but life, real life. You know, Steve Jobs passed away. You know, I remember it was a few years ago. It was right in the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, and I remember that for a reason because Steve Jobs' last words before he passed away were, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." You know, and if anybody knows, oh wow, it's Steve Jobs. The guy basically single-handedly changed the world between the iPad, the iPhone, the iPod. I mean, this guy revolutionized technology in a massive, massive way. So if anybody knows the oh wow, it's him. And for him to be on his deathbed before he's passing into the next world to say, oh wow, there must be something there. The question is, how do you want to be remembered in your life, and what legacy do you want to leave behind? I remember my first day I got to Israel when I was, 17 years old. I went to a yeshiva 25 years ago. And the first thing I heard from one of the rabbis there was, what do you want to say on your tombstone? What do you want to say on your tombstone? And I thought that was a very morbid thing, but then he got into it a little more and he explained himself and he said, how do you want to be remembered in your life? What do you want them to say about you when you pass away? Oh, he drove a fancy car and he had a really nice house, and this guy wore Hugo Boss every day, and this guy had amazing shoes, and that guy, oh, he went to the best clubs. No one's going to care. What do you want them to say? He was a good father, a good mother, a good parent, a good provider. He helped people. He was kind. He was generous. He left behind an amazing family of sweet people who are helping other people, and he's got 50 or 40 or 20 or 10 grandchildren, something of eternity. Because, and I guess I'm speaking really to my friends, the guys who I know and the girls who I know who are older and who are single, and who, for them, unfortunately, the window of opportunity is closing. And you know what? And if your life is going in a direction that you're ultimately not going to be happy with, and if you stop and you think, I remember a friend of mine, she said to me once, she said she went to visit an old woman, a Holocaust survivor, who was sitting alone in an apartment by herself late at night, and it was dark and it was lonely, and she said, I hope I never become that person. And the truth is, if you're not actively involved in looking for a mate, and if you're not actively involved in trying to change your life, then unfortunately you are going to end up to be that person. Sitting alone in an apartment when you're older. I was watching one of these reality TV shows in New York a few years ago about I think it was Buy New York or Sell New York, about people who were buying apartments, and there was this older woman who was very successful, and she finally bought the apartment of her dreams. And that was the thing. She's like, I've been working my whole life for this apartment, and I'm so happy I have it. And she furnished it nicely and everything. And she was sitting there alone, and they came back and said, so, how do you feel about your apartment? She goes, it's amazing. She goes, this is probably all I'm ever going to have in my life. And so ask yourself, what are your goals? What are your plans? What do you really want out of life? And go there and get it, and don't be afraid, and understand that your career is amazing and it's great, but if it's not getting you, what's your goal? What's your plan? If it's not getting you, to the next level, to the next stage of parenthood, of motherhood, of fatherhood, of marriage, of building a family, then it's not worth anything, because eventually you will be replaced by someone smarter or younger or more talented, and then what's going to be? You're going to be sitting alone, God forbid, without, life is passing you by. The opportunity window is closing. It's time for you to really just be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. Look, don't be afraid to look deep down and say, what do I really want out of life? And am I going to get it continuing the way I'm going? And if not, then you need to make that change. Because before you know it, you're going to be 40 and 50 and 60. And you're going to say, what happened? What happened? What happened to my life? I call it jumping for God. Jump for God. Just jump like Nachshon ben Aminadav jumped for Hashem, and Avraham Avinu jumped for Hashem. You're not going to lose. You're not going to lose if you just cry to God and say, Hashem, look, you've given me all this blessing in terms of parnassah and my career and my apartment and my car and all this and the knowledge and I'm a doctor and it's great, but where's it getting me, God? I want more. I need more. I need more. Men, we have the first commandment in the Torah is pru urvu, to have children, to multiply. It's the first. They're going to ask you, why didn't you do it? What are you going to tell them? I tried to date. I tried to this. You didn't try hard enough, because everybody's got a soulmate. Every one of us has another half of our soul that's looking for us. And it's a difficult journey. You have to go, and you have to push, and you have to cry, and you have to pray, and you have to beg, and you have to put it out there. And it's not like, I went on Jay to check my pro. Oh, yeah, okay. No one texted, no one emailed me. So what? No, if you want the same way you want that pair of shoes, the same way you want that job, the same way you got to go after this with your full force, because this is what's important. This is what's eternal. And if you don't do it, I promise you're going to wake up one day lonely and miserable and say, what happened to my life? What happened to my life? So my advice, really, I'm speaking to my good friends who are out there, the ones who are still single, the ones who are stuck on the hamster wheel of life. Just don't be afraid to be honest with yourself and ask yourself the real questions. What do I want out of life? Is this path that I'm continuing on, is it going to get me there? And if it's not, what can I do about it? So I would say, if you feel that way, and I know some of these words are going to bounce off people, and they're going to be like, yeah, whatever. And other people are going to hear this, and it's going to make sense. It's going to touch a nerve inside of you. So to those people, I'm speaking to you. somehow try to do it where you can come to Israel just for 3 months, rent a small apartment for 3 months and just come live here in Jerusalem, walk to the Kotel, take a break from the rat race, come to some classes. I promise you it's going to change your life in a real amazing way. Every single one of us has a soul. And just like your body responds to physical stimuli, your soul also responds to spiritual stimuli. And when your soul is connected and your soul is happy, and we've all been there, whether it's for a minute or an hour, we've all been there. We've come to Israel, we've connected at the wall, at a class, we've connected at a gravesite of a rabbi. There has been that connection, however fleeting. We felt something amazing. That can be your reality. And when your soul is happy, and I promise you, you don't need anything else. It's not like, oh, I'm coming to Israel, I'm giving up all these things that I want, and my car, I really miss it, and I miss. It comes to a point where you're here long enough, and your soul is so connected and plugged in that the physicalities in a certain sense fall away, and you don't need the latest shoes and the latest bag and the latest phone and you don't need these things anymore because your insides are just happy. Everyone's got a soul, and everyone's trying to fill that spiritual void with materialism, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work because there's always going to be a new phone and a new car and new shoes and a new dress and a new something, a better, a bigger, a more modern, and you're going to keep chasing that and chasing that. I remember when I got my first BlackBerry with the wheel on it. I was so excited. And then they got the new BlackBerry, and then the other one, and then they got the iPhone, and the iPhone 4, and the 4S, and the 5, and it never ends. There's always going to be something to hold you there, and you'd have to say, I'm just pleading with the ones I know out there that just take stock of your life and ask yourself where it's going and what do you really want out of it. And don't be afraid to make a change for yourself. Don't be afraid to make a change. You can always go back to that old life. But what if this life is I always tell my friends that God's plans for you are better than your plans for yourself. Hashem has a better plan for you than you have for yourself. Say, how come things aren't working out for me here? How come this isn't going? Maybe because God has a better plan for you. A friend of mine was struggling with Parnassa for so long. Everything he tried, nothing worked. I said, maybe Hashem has a better plan for you. Maybe he doesn't want you to live in that city. Maybe he doesn't want you to live in that country. Maybe he's got a better, maybe your zivug is waiting here in Jerusalem for you, and you're stuck over there trying to do every single little odd job you could do. And I'm not saying it's easy to come here, but I'm saying if you have the opportunity and you have the chance, and you value your life and you value what's real, then come, give it a shot. You're not going to lose. You're not going to lose by jumping for Hashem. So anyway, I hope to see you all here soon. Thanks.